Welcome to the Spa Girls podcast, the self-publishing podcast for authors, the top self-publishing podcast for authors, just saying. You're in the right place for writing craft, publishing business, marketing and mindset discussion for writers. I'm Shah Barrett.
I'm Cheryl Phipps.
I'm Wendy Valla.
And I'm Trudy J.
Yes!
Yay!
Nailed
She's
it.
got it.
We're just cheering ourselves because we completely stuffed it up last week or last time.
As you may have noticed from the last podcast that you listened.
So this week we are talking about marketing organization, just a little bit of the stuff that we do to keep everything to do with our marketing on track and organized and easy, I think that's a big part of
Simplifying.
Simplifying and easy. It
Mm.
doesn't have to be difficult, it doesn't have to be hard, and what we do to make it easy for us. So I think the place to start is, I think anyway, is planning your marketing early, and know your goals, what you're trying to achieve with it, right? So do you guys have a marketing plan or a marketing
No, I suck.
You suck? I think you're probably the most organized.
No, but I tell you what, you'd think so, but it is important to plan it, and so once a month I will sit down and plan it with my daughter, who's rules my life, and so by that I mean we'll sit down and we'll work out what we're going to do, and it's really important to do that, I think, otherwise you can just go off piece very quickly. You get an email newsletter comes around and you go, oh, that platform looks interesting, I haven't used that one before, I must try it, and so shiny new toy. So for me it's really important to sit down and budget it and go, okay, well, I've got X amount of dollars this month, these are the books I am going to market this month, and this is the money I'm going to spend on each of them, and then I break down what platforms I'm going to use. And it's basically that simple, or it's confusing, but that's how I turn around and do it. So once that's done, everything else is extraneous. If I'm going to throw posts up on Facebook, or if I'm going to go into TikTok, or if I'm going to go into Insta or whatever, that is over and above the basic core marketing that I have in place for the month. So that's, for my brain, which is pretty crazy, that is really important.
And use a paper planner for that, don't you?
I use Trello most often,
Trello.
but I'll also put it in my diary, and then also my daughter will send me an email, Mum, don't forget, that, and that's important. But that's
perfect.
Yeah, it works.
Could she
for
send
me
me an email as well?
Yeah. But before she came along, I did this myself, and this is something I have always done. And so it's not anything new, but on a simpler scale. I did it when I had less money to spend on marketing, or 2 books out or 3 books out. But this is how I grew to where I am today. Is that beginning of every month or the end of the last month, I schedule what's going to happen.
Nice.
And it's me. End of story.
I also have a little Word document, which will surprise nobody.
No,
and
it's not a spreadsheet with it.
And I don't. I will put in there what newsletters I'm sending out for the month. So whatever I'm marketing is going to tie up with that, because I'm also going to push that to my newsletter list. So it can be just like what I'll have is like, say, an August newsletter promo, and I'll just have the dates that my newsletter is going to go out. Usually it's the 1st and the 15th, but occasionally I have one a bit later, because there's a promo that I do nearly every month that is very successful, so I don't want to miss that. So I might actually push out a 3rd one, and then I will put in things in there that I may put in that newsletter. And obviously the marketing goes in there first. If I've got a book that's coming up on sale or a new release or whatever, I will pimp that to that newsletter, and perhaps the next couple afterwards if it's a new release.
Do you set your series up? Do you work out which series you're going to promo every month, or do you just rotate them, or do you rotate the books? How does that work?
I rotate the books.
Yep.
So I'm looking at more into the series side of it, but I'm just in the minute of in the process of organising a few more box sets to give me more product. So
when do you box set? How far out after you've published?
Not for a while with the last book. So I'm just putting up book 4 in the Cozy Cafe series. So now I'm going to box up books 1 to 3.
So they've got something to read on to.
Yeah. So then I've actually got a new release and I've got a new product with the box set.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Good.
What about you,
And
Judy?
sorry, just getting back to the email newsletter. I mean, if I've got a freebie and I'm promoting, that is part of the marketing, is that I will send out an email, even if it's off week and it's not a contemporary or historical, I'll still send it, with a freebie in it. So that's just like a free marketing giveaway to all of the people on the list.
So you'll just throw out a newsletter in between when you would normally send them out.
Yep. I just fire one out.
Yeah, that's cool. So what do I do? Yeah, I've been sitting down once a month too, but I've also got a longer plan. Like I'll plan out a bit further. Just I've been going through a period where I've been a bit scared of deadlines. Like I missed a few and it kind of knocked my confidence a bit. So I'm just trying to get back into the whole process of actually having deadlines that I'm going to meet and do stuff with. But I always if I get myself into a routine of doing something, I always do it. So for example, every Friday I do all my newsletter. I do weekly newsletter. Every Friday I do TikToks and Instagram. I'll try and do some posts on Facebook. So that's kind of my marketing / social media kind of day, and I just sit down and do it. So it's not even that it's planned necessarily that far in advance. I just do it. I just know that that's what's going to happen on that day. And then I have someone helping me who does the promos for me. So once a month, since the beginning of the year, I've been trying to do I haven't done it for the last 2 months actually, because we've had a different focus, but we were doing it like once a month. So we sat down and we worked out what book we were gonna. It was actually 2 months in advance because she was booking it out say in June for July. So that was kind of in that same vein of like knowing what you're doing ahead of time. That helped, and that does work. And the other thing I've been doing is I tend to have a lot, I mean we all do, right, like a lot of stuff running around in my brain, and if I can just get it out on paper, then that's kind of like, at least I know that it's somewhere and I don't have to try and panic about keeping it and remembering it. So I do a brainstorm session. Like we just did one recently, a total massive brainstorm session about all the things that I want to do and have set up eventually in my business, and then we write it out, and now we've got it on a Trello board, and now it's about prioritizing and figuring out which to do first, and then that just gives me something to look to see, okay, yeah, there's all this stuff we can do, but this smaller bit here is the stuff that I have to do now, so that I don't have to worry about doing focus, all the things. It gives you focus, and it gives you so we were focusing on the website, for example, for a while there, and we were getting all the stuff done on the website. Now that's mostly done. So now we're working on the newsletter, and we're getting stuff set up for the newsletter, and it will just be that kind of process going through and optimizing things there for getting it all set up how I want it to be done. And I think the one big thing for me is that I just have to let things go. Like I could sit there and fiddle with stuff for years, and it's that whole concept of perfect is the enemy of done. And I don't think, I kind of always say it like, I don't think there is actually a perfect in this world, but I always, even knowing that there's no perfect, I still try and get there, or what I used to. And now I'm kind of like, actually, does it matter? No, it does not. So, and in fact, sometimes imperfection is better than perfection.
I think striving for clarity is perhaps more important than perfection, because clarity means that you've just ticked your boxes to get where you want to be. Like, I think it's very important to have what you're doing, what you're planning, but you also have to have an idea of what that entails. And I'm talking here about scheduling your books to come down in price, like making sure that's all loaded before your newsletter goes out, and you need to do that, give yourself time for that. So that's something that I would put in my diary. Make sure you change the price of this now, so that when I don't have to think about it when the newsletter's up. I can just look at my diary, that's ticked, done, we're good to go. I mean, I will check some things, especially free books. I will check that they're up for free.
Because there's nothing worse than that email, right? That they say, just to let you know, we won't be advertising your book because it's not free. And
it might not even just be one email. It might be like
quite a few.
Loads.
Let us know when it's free. Waiting, and
then always do a grovel in those instances, because it will happen. It will. We're not all infallible, even with lists.
Even that kind of stuff stresses me out majorly, like the
Yeah.
idea of forgetting.
I feel so bad. I feel
It's just, I got
awful.
one the other day. Did you know that you put in for a free book? And I'm just like, I thought it was 99 cents. Sorry, my bad. You know, so I went back to him. He
Yeah.
was all cool about it. But, you
Yeah.
know, I think writing things down and having that plan and, you know, and those days to do things and that. Otherwise, you're just chasing your tail. And if you're
Yeah.
writing a book on top of it
Yeah.
and you've got a
Yeah.
deadline, it's like,
Yeah. I like the idea. We talked to you, Wendy, about your launch plan, and you just had this big long list of all the things that you have to do and the day that you had to do it on, and just that's what you have to do. It's almost like the planning is done in preparation, and then all you have to do on that day is go, right, this is my task for the day, I'll go do the task, and it doesn't have to be a big drama. Versus if you had nothing written down and you'd be like, this is what I've done in certain circumstances where I've gone, like, you almost have to replan it every day. Like you go, oh shitters, what do I need to do?
what am I doing today?
How am I doing this? And what happens, what needs to happen? And actually,
I've got no graphic for that, and I'm supposed to do that
where's
now.
the graphic? Where's the thing?
But I
I
think
think
taking a day, right? Sorry, Shah.
It's okay.
I think taking a day to get, like, I've got a launch coming up at the end of September, and I think taking a day to get all the graphics done, do all of that stuff. While you sometimes, I don't want a day away from my writing, I think sometimes you've got to, just so that you've got some clarity. You know, like it's really important.
I think batching work like that is absolutely vital to
will
do.
actually save you time, right?
Saves heaps of time, and it also you're in the flow, you know, you get in the flow. So one of the approaches that I would take, and what I have taken when I've helped out authors with marketing, is I actually go back to the publication schedule, the publishing schedule, before you plan any marketing, is actually know for the next 12-month period, usually I worked in a year, was what books are coming out when. Doesn't have to be set in stone, but vaguely, you know, what is coming out in quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3. And then you can work from there. But that's kind of like your overarching dictate of what you're doing and when you're doing it, whether it's 1 book a year or 4 books a year or 6 books a year. It makes a big difference. Alana Johnson has talked about how she has different marketing strategies or launch strategies for depending on where the books are in a series. You know, it's that kind of thing. When you're working with a bigger backlist, that there is quite a lot of moving parts to that. Otherwise, you can easily find yourself spending all your time marketing and very little time writing. So I think you have to kind of assign a box around the marketing time, what is of your choosing. But I would always personally start from the publication schedule, because that will dictate then what you do as your marketing. And then I would I've discovered, no surprise, I love Trello. Love Trello, because you can have those checklists, you can have those cards that are in Trello that are, you can keep it as a template, so you're not reinventing the wheel for each book. You just, you know, that's already there. I'm also a huge paper planner girl, but you know, that's another story for another day. But I also love a tick. It's called Tick Tick, and it's an online kind of to-do list. And that, again, you can have recurring tasks on there, so you can set dates, and that's where you don't have to remember particular dates, or you don't have to physically write it in your diary. It will bring up on your list, you know, okay, on the 15th of the month I'm doing this or I'm doing that. A lot of authors diarize once a month. They apply to BookBub, for example, so you would have a reminder. And I think the more tasks like that are repetitive, that you're repeating, whether it's once a month or once every 3 months, it takes it off your mental brain load kind of thing. So if you can kind of automate that as much as possible, I'd highly recommend that. Particularly if you haven't got an assistant, and you know, a lot of our listeners will have, and a lot won't. You know, it would be lovely to have somebody else doing that kind of mental load for them, but it's not there. So you kind of have to do it for yourself. And I think it's a topic for another podcast, but you can't do all the things. We've talked about that many times on many podcasts, but you can't do it all, particularly when it's just you doing your own marketing. I've talked about her before. Sarah Cannon of the Heart Breathings channel talks about you work out how much time that you've got in that particular, she works on a 90-day plan, but you work out how much time you've got that month or that 3-month period, and you divide it up into boxes. And so if you've got 10 hours free out of your schedule, then you can't do everything. You can't do TikTok, Facebook. You just can't, unless you're some kind of superhuman, and none of us are yet. So you have to choose what works best for you and what that you
I think planning,
enjoy.
right?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Planning, it's like
planning,
like
but
a
also
planning,
I
just
think
a
planning, but
year
also
plan.
thinking about it as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, a year plan like we used to do was, yes, it was, but year plans tend to change, and that's why I think I prefer the quarterly plan, because I think it's a more longer ranging, because you do need that long range view, because you need to, particularly if you're managing series, you want to give attention to different series. So if you've got a book coming out in series B in June, then in that quarter where June falls, then that's what you would be pushing as the backlist for that book for that series, I should say. So that gives you, it's kind of like building the wave for that launch. So
I think, I've done a sort of we just sit for a day, my daughter and I, and do like a retreat. And so we then just plan out the year, plan out what series we're going to put on, we're going to promote or market, what's coming out, and what we're going to promote before that coming out, and that really works as a loose guide. So that's the plan, and then monthly we will just work out what we're gonna do.
And that's good. It's kind of like planning what you knowing ahead of time what you are going to do, whether it's monthly,
to have that
quarterly,
higher level
or yearly,
and then go down.
And then
I think it's important to for me, for knowing what I'm writing, for one, because before I just used to how I felt like I'd write it. But now I sort of have a bit of a plan going forward with.
Do you have a marketing Bible? Does everyone have marketing Bibles?
No.
So you don't have like one folder that has all the images and the tag?
Oh yeah,
I have a folder for ads. It's just called ads, but when you go into that, there's ads for cozies and there's ads for romance. And when you go into that, there's ads for each series, and in that series is ads for each book. So when I come to that month where I'm promoting that book, I go in there and I have a look. There's graphics in there that I can use, and that's actually another little tip. If you're making a graphic for a 99-cent book, make one for free as well. Same graphic potentially, and put those in this folder, and they're there anytime you need them. So,
and the thing about it is, if you don't want to keep a huge folder of graphics on your thing, they're on Canva or a thingy anyway, so you can just re-download them. So that's the thing, you can go into those graphics and just easily adjust them and change them. Say if you're writing a series and you want to use their colors, you can just go in and put in the next book cover or the next words, and you've got the background already there and it's set up.
Because that's the kind of thing you don't want to have to every month go, oh, I've got to do graphics and things for this next book. It's like if you've got them all sitting there in a folder or on Canva or wherever, that you just go in, and you've got to make it as easy as possible for you. That was kind of mind-blowing for me when I first heard that. I think that was a RAM talk where someone was talking about how they had this folder, and they had all the stuff for each of the books and each of the series as they made it, and then they just went back to that book, that folder, and it wasn't just the graphics, it was like taglines, it was excerpts, blurb, it was
keywords,
like different length blurbs, like some of the promos you have to have a really short blurb or a medium blurb or a long blurb, or if you're doing excerpts for your newsletter, you have a long excerpt, or Facebook ads versus a short excerpt versus a long like all that kind of stuff.
I have a file in Dropbox.
Folder.
I go to Dropbox so that we can all use it, and it's got the book, the series, the book, and then the finals folder in there, and that finals folder's got the graphics, the final file, the excerpts, and anything to do with that book.
And it seems time consuming at the time, but as Cheryl's talked about in a previous episode, where you write the epilogue after you've written the final scene, it's just a little bit of work up front, bit of work up front. Can actually, it's easier to do it when you're in their zone.
But even if you when you first do it, like for me, I used to just kind of have it saved all higgledy-piggledy all over the show, and half the thing would be like, oh, do I have this already? And searching around and trying to find it. Whereas now it's all in one place, and I go, okay, I need to do a sale or a promo on this book. I go into that folder, and everything that I've ever done to do with that book is sitting there easily for me to access. It's just
and I think it also doesn't hurt, just moving away from marketing for a minute, to have a document in there that states the day it was edited, the day you got the covers, the day that it was published, etc. And the reason I say that is if ever you need to prove copyright or anything, you don't have to go hunting for any of that information. You can just copy that information into it and send it, like I think I've just started doing that, and I think that's important too, so you don't have to go searching for those details.
Yeah.
Same
That's
thing.
just-
I used to keep it for you, Wendy, and I don't know if you kept it going, but one thing I do is have an Excel spreadsheet with the ASIN number, data publication,
Yeah.
KU or not, that
Yeah.
kind of thing, and then the links if it's wide to the other stores. That's super helpful to have all that in a spreadsheet.
All of that, everything to do with the
entire-
book. Be as
all the-
organized as you possibly can.
Yeah.
All there.
Mhm.
So that's the pre stuff, but actually there's another side to the marketing organization as well, is the after stuff. It's the assessing the data that you're getting. So looking back over the month. So at the beginning of the month, you plan out what you're going to do, but then at the end of the month, my coach calls it a scorecard, and I've just started doing this. I mean, and it's really interesting. I had the sense I kind of knew where things were going with certain things, and I thought I knew what was at. And then I actually got the information, and I had it in a spreadsheet saying, this is what I earned this month, this is what I spent, this is all this kind of stuff. And I had a few things that were different to what I was expecting. It was interesting. So don't assume or think that you're on top of it because you're looking at numbers every day. You need to kind of, I think now, have it in a spreadsheet and actually have that information like written,
That's where Read Links is very good for that.
Yeah, Read Links.
So we download all the data from ads towards the end of the month, everything, and it just all goes into Read Links, everything. Amazon, BookBub, Facebook, everything, and I can just look at a glance what the expenditure is. And
there's
also
no
I think
point just throwing money after a bad ad.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's really
I think
easy
it's
to
important
do that
to
too,
check your
isn't it?
subscriptions too. Every now and again, just go in and see what you've subscribed for. I did that the other day, and I was like, I don't remember subscribing for that.
You mean in terms of paid services?
Yeah,
I don't use
like
that.
I don't use that. When did that happen?
I was paying for about 8 months for a photo service where I was supposed to be downloading 10 photos a month, and I'd forgotten that I didn't realize that I had applied for an ongoing one. I thought I just bought a month, and I had like 10 months worth. It was like almost $1,000.
My husband's just gone through and done that all for me, and he's like, "What's that?"
Very easy to do, especially when it's
even
a
on your
monthly
phone,
cost.
right? Yeah.
So in that case, I keep a simple Word document of all my subscriptions as well. That's that. And the same thing for any domain names and that kind of thing. Keep a track of what your domain names are, what who they're bought through, whether they're hosting, all of that kind of stuff. That is super helpful as well, because it's easy to forget where these things are. And just, I think there's just as it is important to assign a time to plan, I think it's also important to assign a time to actually study your numbers as well, like that you're saying, whether it's Read Links or whether it's just you looking at the Facebook, if you're doing Facebook ads, looking at that insights panel.
This is why I wanted to so there's the insights panel, right? And you can have an ad that looks good on the surface, right? Like you have an ad that seems to be, it's got good conversion, it's got whatever, it's got good click-through rate, it's got the things that seem to make it into a good ad, and then you take it out of that and look at it against how much your income is, like and things like that. Like you can't just look at an ad on the ad panel by itself, because it might not be converting on Amazon. Do you know what I mean?
So these people are clicking.
Yeah, just
but
because
on
you've
the
got a
flip
really
side
good
to that, if you've got a bad ad and it's the first book in the series and there's 10 books and they may have a read through, you've got to take that into consideration. Read through is massive,
So this is all the data that you've got to know and have be on top of.
And it's not always easy to find it, to be fair, but
So there's that, but there's also things like, for example, our YouTube channel for Spa Girls. We're aiming to grow that to 1,000 people by the end of the year, so everyone feel free to go and subscribe right now.
Please.
But that's our goal, and each month basically Shah but tells us is looking at that and saying, okay, well, what's working, what's not working, what could we be doing, and if she ignored it and we just did whatever we wanted, then that might get us to 1,000, but might not too. Whereas if we're trying to different ways to do this, or which post works best, what type of post, like what kind of type of title, what kind of graphics, which is the most, that kind of thing is something that we're definitely looking at as we do this, and you should be too, like in terms of your marketing. So a TikTok post that did really well, how can you replicate that? What can you do to, or a Facebook post, which, like, we know for us, for the Spa Girls, the posts that do really well are the ones about us personally, about the writer's life, about the things we're doing and how we're, I don't know, doing, basically what we're doing. And those are the ones that people like the most. They don't interact as much. So we try and do more of those if we can. Sometimes it's hard.
Yeah,
but
I think it's work smarter, not necessarily harder. Do what works more of.
And things that just burden you, don't do.
Exactly.
Unless you absolutely have to. But if you're just doing them because you think you have to do them and you hate them and they're not actually providing much more growth in your business, then don't do them.
I would say that particularly that applies to social media. It's
Absolutely.
very hard to juggle Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, Instagram, wherever else you want, Twitter as well. Like particularly when you don't have anybody else helping you out. I think.
And if you don't enjoy it, I feel like that would come across. Do you know what I mean? Like you're not going to put as much effort into it. You're not going to engage with people. You're just going to be there because you feel like you have to, and that's not a good vibe to be putting out to the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have reader links, and one of the things that I've been doing for this year, because I had such a bad year last year with marketing, was I actually made up a sheet of all my books, and the highlighted bits are actually how they did, and the yellow part is when I've done big ads, and so looking at the sales, but then also the read through. So it's just a really simple way, especially when you don't have a lot of books. I mean, I do have a few, but I've got 2 different pen names, but I was really trying to focus in on how each book was doing and why. And it's just sort of like bringing it back to what you can do for yourself to find out, so that you're not second guessing what's happening with a particular ad, or in my case, just newsletters as well. How they're performing. Again, you can see people clicking on links and all that when you go into the back of the newsletter, but this way I know that they've actually bought from my newsletter.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of newsletters, that's another place that you can kind of have a bit of organization too. And I feel like for me, I've gotten into this, and I mean, I feel like people are doing okay with, in terms of engagement and things. It's like I always have the same 3 sections in the newsletter now. Like I used to just be a bit all over the show and did different things, and whereas now I know I need a little bit about me and what I've been doing. I have a book that I recommend, and then I have an excerpt or a chapter. At the moment I'm going through chapter by chapter of one of my books that I literally took out of KU for this purpose, actually. Like I can and that makes it really easy for me to do. Like I don't have to sit there thinking, oh God, what am I going to say? What am I going to talk about? How's this going to work? I just go, right, what I've been doing this week, blah, 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 blah. What's the book I want to recommend? And sometimes it's a swap. Sometimes it's just me recommending books I like that are in the right genre. And then bung in the chapter that I'm putting in.
Again, that's working smarter, not harder.
You just want to write the one little bit about yourself, and then the rest of it has got to be something
and
simple,
repurposing
like
something is perfect. I hadn't been writing much romance, and so I have had a heck of a lot of short stories, so I've just been giving those away free in a serialized form if they were more than a few chapters.
So it's making it easy on yourself. That's the biggest thing with marketing and organization, and trying not to redo the same stuff over and over again. Like every time you do a graphic, don't just have to start from the beginning, go back to the previous stuff that you've already got, that kind of thing.
Find a brand for your series, and then just swap it out. That's what I do.
And I think so the other thing we were talking about, like, know your data, and it's the other thing I've just looked at my little list of what we should talk about is make changes based on that data. So it's one thing to know all the data and go, I know this is, but actually if it's not working in a certain way you want it, make a change, do something a little bit different. And if it is working really well, can you scale it? Like, can you do more of that? Like if a particular type of ad is working or a particular system is working, how can you make that better? Do more.
Absolutely.
So that's what you should be using the data for. It's planning and then making it better. So
Okay. So I just really wanted to be the not to be the Debbie Downer at all. But just a reminder that your marketing starts when you're actually writing the book. It's about your content. It's particularly about your cover and your book description as well. So all the advertising in the world won't easily sell a book that is just not
Up to scratch.
up to scratch. Yeah, let's put it that way. And so sometimes it's really good, I think, to think about when you're writing, it's part of the marketing process, not to over kind of complicate it, but you're already doing marketing. So don't spend all this time marketing and less time on the writing, because the writing is the most important. Without the product, let's just put it really clearly, without the product on the shelf, you've got don't let it imbalance there. And I say that as a marketer because it's very easy, because a lot of the stuff is creative, a lot of the graphics, it's kind of fun for a lot of us. We find it a lot of fun, and you can easily end up very, very, very down the rabbit hole on this. So
allocate yourself some time so you can.
Yeah, I think that's it. Set some timing around it, and a lot of authors do maybe either. I mean, we've had authors on, haven't they? They do a period of writing, so it might be several weeks, and then they have a month that they focus on marketing, and they'll prepare all their marketing ready for that next sort of quarter kind of thing. And other people do it one day a week. They have marketing, or other people do it. They have 2 afternoons a week and writing the rest of the time. So have a schedule,
also,
I think.
Also, if you've only got one book out, we've said this before as well. You can market it, you can absolutely market it, but I think you won't actually be successful with your marketing until you've got at least a second book out, so you've got somewhere to send them when they finish that book.
The more books you have, the more it becomes much more viable for the cost of recouping your cost on advertising. So it's just a basics on the numbers front.
Good idea.
And I think consistency and being regular, being organized, being on top of it is all going to help you.
Yeah, so you don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah, exactly.
This whole thing can be quite overwhelming. It's not
don't have to do it all.
Trained for.
As we always say, don't have to do it all. Be consistent and regular.
Just do it slowly.
Plan it out.
Yeah, get things right.
You can do it.
You can do it.
You can do it.
We believe in you.
Cool.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Is that all we've got to say about this topic?
That's all we have to say. I think it's a big
out.
topic, and I would strongly suggest that you go and listen to or watch our podcast on YouTube at youtube.com/Bargirls Podcast, and please click the subscribe button while you're there. But all the information that you need to do these individual things, whether it's promotions, whether it's advertising, whatever, is all contained. We've all given you that. So it's all there. And just learn one thing at a time if you're learning.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds
right. Well,
good.
thank you for listening to another episode of the Spa Girls podcast. We'll be back again next week with another exciting episode. There might be drama. There might be I don't know what.
Might be infighting.
There might be. Who knows? But
we'll just have a guest.
Yeah, we'll probably just have a guest. That's Spa Karma. But for now, farewell.
Bye. Bye.